Lawmakers remain at loggerheads over a series of parliamentary reform bills. Lawmakers from the KMT and the Taiwan People's Party occupied the Speaker's podium early this morning, and Legislative Speaker Han Kuo-yu initially attempted to open the day's session, but later called a break to the proceedings as he was unable to read the agenda due to ongoing protests in the chamber. And I spoke with regular ICRT commentator Ross Feingold, who explained what the parliamentary reform bills that have caused the dispute in the Legislative Yuan are and what problems they may or may not pose.
Well, one would require the president to make a speech analogous to the United States president delivering the State of the Union at the U.S. Congress. And a controversial part of that as well is whether or not the president would then be subject to question time by members of the Legislative Yuan the way the premier is, or in other countries, the prime minister. So I think the president delivering an address at the Legislative Yuan, I don't think that's such a big deal, so I'm not sure why the DPP opposes it. I think the question part, though, being subject to questioning, maybe that's a bit too much, at least in an initial round of changes. Maybe they should the majority should just take a victory if they could get it passed that the president will deliver a speech again. I just don't see what the big deal is. I mean, you could basically repeat his inauguration speech if he wanted to. Well, I'm referring to President Lai. Another contentious one is to create a capability for the Legislative Yuan to conduct investigations. Again, this would be analogous to the United States, and it's often in the news from the United States that there's a committee in Congress that is conducting an investigation, issuing subpoenas requiring people to appear, take an oath, and tell the truth when they're sitting in front of the congressman. Also, in the United States, Congress has the ability to subpoena documents and not just individuals to appear. So it looks like the Legislative Yuan members want to have their own authority to conduct such thorough investigations. I definitely see some dangers here if they get involved in investigations that have no point or it's only for partisan political purposes. But broadly speaking, members of a parliament should have investigative powers. I think at a high level, it seems to be a reasonable ask. And then the other one is a contempt of the parliament or contempt of the Legislative Yuan here in Taiwan. And again, this is similar to a power that exists in the United States Congress and other parliaments around the world, which is if a government official who's being questioned by a Legislative Yuan member at the Legislative Yuan is rude or not answering the questions, then their vote could be held to hold them in contempt. Again, I see the dangers here that a contempt vote could be a partisan exercise. So it's definitely something that needs a more thorough discussion. But again, it is a power that parliaments in other places do have.
That was regular